I think it's about time for another Pokemon Sun and Moon video, so let's go and talk about some news that's a few days old at this point, but apparently Amazon has quote-unquote leaked that there will be multiple islands in Pokemon Sun and Moon, and somehow people like freaked out. Now, one of the big things is like, oh, this is being published by Nintendo on Amazon, so it's official news, and all it really just says is like, tropical islands. It's a plural word. It's not even like there will be multiple islands in this game or any kind of like official thing. Someone just dug into the wording and was like, oh, plural, islands. There we go. And somehow people lost their minds over it, and even news sites were making news on it. And this is just absolutely silly. Like, who's going to take this and be like, oh my gosh, look at this amazing news, I need the clicks on it. Because when we look at what we've seen of the Alola region so far, just from the trailer, we actually see the full island, and we already know that's going to be based off of Hawaii, so it's hard to imagine that an archipelago, a group of islands, which is what this is based off of, is only going to be the one island, but people still think this, and somehow it was news that one word that's plural implies that it isn't already. Now, what we can see is that the island is going to be based off of Oahu. I mean, we can just see the Diamond Head crater right here. And you can even see that there's a town a little to the left, and then you can see the actual crater itself. So obviously there's some heavy influences, and if we take this more side angle view, yeah, that looks almost exactly like what we see from the island in the trailer. And then when we think about a couple other things from this island, it really just doesn't make any sense. I mean, look at Hoenn. Hoenn isn't just one island. And even like the size of Hoenn as a region is much larger than what we actually see here. If anything, this feels like Sutopla City. It'd be like if you just saw Sutopla City in the trailer and went, oh my goodness, is that all that we have? No, it's a very, very small part of it. And even when we look at the city scaling, like, it's not a massive city. That while it is really well scaled, I mean, there was a lot of beautiful stuff in this trailer. I would say that actually running down the street, it feels very nice and very natural, but it's also pretty tiny compared to something like Lumiose City. That it feels about right on the scaling, but you can just tell that it's much larger, and if we go back to the island, you know, it's just a nice little strip with a couple of high-rises, condos, some kind of fancy buildings like that, but when we look at Lumiose City, it's an actual massive city. This is kind of just like a shoreside, touristy, developed town feel. But when we look at Lumiose City, like, judging by this, Lumiose City would be its own region, when instead it's still a very small part of Kalos overall. And going back to the little islands thing, I mean, there's an island, there's an island, there's an island. It's Hawaii. It's islands. There should be no surprise that it's about islands, but people did comment it. That, like, when I was looking at my videos, I was actually facepalming that people were worried that this was all we had. It's like, oh, this island looks kind of small to be a region. Well, it's only one island, and I don't know why anyone would think otherwise. So really, all these news articles are doing are just preying on those kinds of people. Same with the YouTube videos of people covering this topic, and that's something I didn't really understand. Now, another thing that blew my mind was people that are just like, oh man, there's going to be so much surfing, because somehow everyone just gets so triggered that whenever they see an island region, they see a lot of water and they just get scared and they don't like surfing. Because honestly, surfing isn't the best part of Pokemon. It's like an underwater world in Mario. It's not that exciting and it's kind of boring. I think the worst part about it is that random encounters are everywhere. So you either load up on the just kind of repels or something, and then you have to do some just long, boring surfing. But at the same time, there's nothing to imply that, and people are already jumping to conclusions and getting mad about too much water in a water island region. But we just go back to Fire Red and Leaf Green, and all of those problems go away. Now, sure, there's probably gonna be some surfing, like maybe between two smaller islands, or we can already see that there's surfing on the main map, and I'll get back to that. But the Sea Gallop. The Sea Gallop actually is a ferry, and it's a... Why would anyone just not think, hey, there's gonna be a lot of islands, why don't we just ferry from island to island, and it's going to feel, I wouldn't say super cohesive, because you would still have to, like, hop around and stuff like that, but it's going to feel like a strung together region, and not just be this massive surfing thing. And the Sea Gallop actually covers a good amount of distance, because it departs from Vermilion City. That's inside of Kanto. That it's not like, oh yeah, it's just something that's, you know, already on a coast. Now it's in the harbor and it has to kind of surf out and stuff, but we already know this. And then it goes into the Sevi Islands, and I don't really think there's too much else to say about that. That there's a lot of islands that are linked together by ferries, and I would imagine the design of it to be very similar to what we're going to see out of the Alola region. And if anything, if the Sevi Islands weren't already like overplayed and already so well defined or something, or if they weren't kind of overwriting the Orange Islands from the anime's canon, like, it seems like that this is effectively going to be our Sevi Islands, our Orange Islands, but in official Pokemon game. The foundation's already there to make something that isn't total junk, and when you look at the Sevi Islands, they're all well defined. Like, they are a decent mass, and I mean, if you're going to be making a game based on region and not something silly little post game, well, I wouldn't even call it Sevi Islands silly, but I mean, not just little post game stuff. You can already see that it's not too hard to flesh out these islands and then just make them large enough to scale up and stuff. We could even see with the Orange Islands. The Orange Islands, some of them would have multiple cities on just one island for the larger islands, and it looks like the main island that we start off in isn't even going to be one of the largest, just basing off of Hawaii, and overall, you know, we don't start in Palette as like the largest town or anything like that. Viridian City was pretty hyped in the anime, but even that doesn't really carry over too much. So we'll just have to see where it develops, but I don't know where people are saying like just one island, too much surfing, stuff like that. And we can even see that in the trailer, in the island picture that we get. It looks like there's some kind of boat dock right there. That it resembles Vermilion City, so why would there be any potential problem with it? I don't even know. So let's zoom back out. Let's actually try to break down the region as well, because we can see that, alright, we have our little starting town area-ish, just like, you know, the initial place. There's the Pokemon Professor's Lab, and where we start off, and then we get our starter Pokemon. That's cool. And then we can also see the town. All this is in the trailer, and we get to actually put it into a really nice scale. Now, the other scenes that we get in the trailer aren't super obvious. Like, running down the path, that seems like it's about around here or something, but it doesn't give us like a lot of the interactions with the islands and stuff. There's also just like a lot of buildings that go unexplained as well. That, alright, so we run down the path and we start heading to the city, and we already get a cutscene of us in the city. So at that point, we've already skipped about 2 places, and as we work our way around the island, we see another 3 houses or so that really don't make a lot of sense. I mean, the Pokemon Center, the Pokemart, those look identifiable, and then just random towering buildings, but the other ones seem to be of a bit more importance, and we'll just have to see how those develop. That's also a lot of fun. And even when it comes to like too much surfing, a lack of surfing or whatever, it looks like that there's going to be some mid-game interactions already just in our home island, because we can see that there's going to be areas we can surf around in that look accessible. There's a cave, so maybe that'll be at some point when you get strength, or, you know, there's going to be some kind of access that's restricted initially, and then we're going to have to go somewhere to get that ability to come back and then unlock further gameplay. So it looks like the islands are going to be very interconnected as well, and just kind of piecing some things together. Remember the original trailer? Like the first reveal, it all comes together in a brand new Pokemon adventure. That feels like all those little things have kind of been forgotten, but I did try to look for some of the buildings, and the only one I could really somewhat identify is that this looks like the Slacking Hotel setup. So the initial influences and what we've already seen in the game is starting to kind of come together. Now, what this has for significance just seems like it's going to be like the general hotels like we had in Pokemon X and Y. Maybe there'll be a chain, maybe it's just like some design concepts and going on right here, but I like it. You know, if you're going to Hawaii, or if you're just kind of vacationing anywhere, these kind of hotels you'll see. Actually, that's not even a hotel, that's a motel. That's like one of those single story, more complexy kind of things. Semantics, either way, we can see that those influences are carrying over, and that is something interesting. But another weird part about breaking down the island that we see here is that there is an apparent lack of grass. I mean, it's already pretty unusual that the path from the starting area just goes straight into the town. It looks like we might not have to worry about too many wild Pokemon encounters. I just kind of highlighted the things that might look like patches of grass. And also I like try to draw in some little brown lines to kind of show those hill areas that you can't walk back up over. And that's kind of it. So some ledges, some grass maybe, but having like just the main route, either that's going to be blocked at some point. I feel like that might actually drive some gameplay. It's blocked until you make it to the city, and then people end up patching it up, and that's how you learn about Pokemon encounters or stuff. That could be a thought, but then there's like some grass in random areas as we explore those other unidentified houses and whatnot. So it's starting to make sense if you actually break it down. Like, it's weird. I don't think I've seen people break down the island too much and also go back into the original videos and try to really piece it together. But it's actually really nice when you think about it, to have your home island be not as Pokemon infested, I guess. And when you think about it, you're developing an island, that you can kind of tone down the amount of wild Pokemon, and I feel that that's just a good safety measure, that when we think about the original game, I mean, going from Palatown to Viridian City is apparently something that kids are just not allowed to do. You walk into grass, Professor Oak is like, no! It's like he sits in the lab all day, just kind of like sipping coffee, looking out the window, just see if a kid tries to like go into the grass for some reason. I mean, it's weird, because there's grass everywhere, that there's no straight path that where you're not going to encounter a Pokemon to get to the town. So if you're trying to run an errand or get groceries or something, you're going to have a Pokemon, is what it seems like, or at least that's what the game implies. So kids don't go out and have fun. With the island the way it is, it seems a bit more safe, and that does make a lot more sense. So we have the professor, and we can also have like some training ground areas and get a nice more introduction to the world. I think that that's going to be one of the biggest parts about this. If the movement is actually going to be consistent from what we've seen in the trailer, because it looks like it's more of that 3D follow me perspective and not so much as a top down like we've seen in other Pokemon games. It almost feels like when we're going to Castelia City and it has a lot of that 3D in a different kind of fashion, and also kind of going around through Lumio City. If the whole game is like that, it'd maybe be better just kind of like show how the terrain works out, have basic Pokemon battles and not be overwhelmed by those mechanics, so the older Pokemon players can adjust and also just kind of soak in the game. But with that pacing, it might actually cause a lot more good for the actual gameplay and stuff like that. And then, as I've kind of noted, we're going to have to return to this island at some point to explore, and then that's when all the mechanics kick up. More surfing, potentially cave exploration, there could be a gym somewhere around it. The island isn't that big, but as we've already pretty much proven, outside of even multiple islands confirmation, it does seem pretty solid. So I think we're pretty good with like the main idea of this video. Now I'm just going to ramble here at the end. It's kind of, you know, leave a comment down below. What do you think? Is there anything I'm missing? Like, do you think Diamond Head Crater replica placement thing is actually going to have some kind of significance in the game? Do you think it's not the Slacking Motel? Do you think it is? Is there something really stupid obvious that I've missed? I don't think I have. Like, it's... unless you go, like, pixel by pixel through the entire island, which I'm pretty sure some people have, and maybe they have a lot of really good thoughts about it, but this is just, like, a general overview. Not making too many bold claims, kind of looking into it like, alright, I can see where the ferry goes, I can see how the town lays out, and at this time, it really doesn't mean too much else. So, just wait for a week. Actually, yeah, like, less than a week at this point by the time I'm making the video, because, like, alright, cool. All of this could either be somewhat confirmed when we get the June 2nd news, and then also maybe Korokoro. Like, this is also where the news starts getting pretty crazy. June 2nd, we have another reveal. Are we going to see what wireframe bird is? Are we going to get confirmation on that puppy dog that we see when you head out of your house for the first time? There's a couple things that could be filled in that really wouldn't be huge information, but it would make a lot of sense. And then also, will it overlap with Korokoro? Will Korokoro have exclusives? They said in May's issue that it will be exclusive, since last month's really wasn't, and they did technically have a bit of an exclusive as well. It's kind of hard to see who's playing up the hype and who's like trying to get the information out at the right time. So yeah, also leave a comment if you made it this far. I don't know how many people we want to keep along through this ramble, just kind of going it, but if you made it this far, also comment on how you feel about the news. I've been seeing a lot of people saying that they have been shutting down from social media, that they've been cutting off Twitter, cutting off comments, they don't want to be spoiled, because it's a really interesting thought. I don't think that, I want to do a video on it, which is why I want to see how people's reactions are to it, and if there's actually enough to go off of, I'd really like to do a video discussing this, because it seems like people have their own ideas of what is spoiling and what isn't, even though if it's different to the people actually spoiling. Like, this is official sources. It's not like your friend is going and blabbing the whole game away, but at the same time, you know, theories and speculations, they might overhype people, that you set expectations too high, or you give a little bit away, so that way when it's actually revealed, even though the original speculation was wrong, the idea was right, and that might be a little too much. But at the same time, I'm like trying to figure out like how the news sources and everything goes, and I wanted to really see how many people out there are like terrified of finding out about too much, and how many really, they're excited about it, they don't care, etc. like that. So I think that's a good place to end the video. So if you guys enjoyed this video, you know, we gotta do some Pokemon Sun and Moon. It's got a week until, it's been like what is this, 10, 12, yeah, it's almost been 2 weeks since the last information. Got a week until another one. Gotta kind of bump that hype up a bit, and we'll be good to go. So if you guys enjoyed the video, hope you all have a nice day. Thank you for watching.